Hi, everybody. I can't believe we're now at step 8, and I'm hoping that step 8 for you was like for me, a turning point in my life. And why step 8 was called adventure was because I recognized that I needed to kind of start challenging myself to grow and to learn and to evolve and to do new things in my life because I didn't want to stay stagnant as a person. And the first 6 and 7 steps of the book was about intrinsic health as well as physical health, whereas the next stages of the book lead into kind of that spiritual health and that forward momentum into self-actualization, the top of the pyramid, and moving forward with our hopes and our dreams and our future, which is really where an innate sense of well-being comes from. It's to having that life purpose, wanting to have a mission and drive and so on and so forth. And it's not necessarily about being ambitious or wanting to conquer the world. It's just about knowing innately who you are and what you want to achieve in your life, and what you're doing for your own sense of purpose and your soul mission, as I like to call it, which is a word that you'll find in many kind of self-help circles as well. So when I decided to embark on step 8, the truth was that I wasn't quite sure, even at the very beginning of step 8, what was my adventure. But throughout the course of step 8, or I mean, as in the days went by, I started to become a little bit more clear. And I had already started writing a lot in the preceding months. And in fact, I started writing with my journal, and I wrote poems in my journal all the way from the very day dot of step 1. So by step 8, I had already amassed a number of poems in my journal, and I had written down the idea for a book in my journal. And I decided then and there in step 8 that I would start to step into that notion that I could be a writer. So there were some networking events that came up, and well, there were business events that I attended, and some networking events and some self-improvement courses that I went in throughout the course of step 8. And rather than turn up and say, "Oh, hi, I'm Chrissy, I'm a project manager," and talk about, that my work as an international projects director, I just decided to talk about myself as a person. So when people said, "Oh, what do you do?" I said, "I'm a writer." And they said, "Oh, what do you write?" And it was a huge thing for me to say out loud, "I'm a writer," to strangers and people who didn't know me. But I just decided that if I ever wanted to become a writer and to fulfill that dream, I needed to own up to it. So, I told people, well, I write poems and blogs and articles, and I'm working on a book. And so that was kind of cool. And I got a good reaction from people like, oh, excellent. So, I just kind of kept going and kept going. And then I set up a website for my poetry, and I started sharing it online. Then I set up social media. So the Wellness Poet basically went from journal to online platform. And then I started finding more and more spaces to kind of talk about my work. So that was really, really interesting, because when I say my work, there's a podcast that I listened to 18 months ago, and it talks the difference between your job and your work. So your job is the thing that you do to earn money, to put food on the table, and your work is your sole purpose. That's your reason for getting up in the morning. And sometimes the two things are linked. Sometimes we might derive income from our work, our sole purpose, and sometimes we might need a job to sustain us whilst we're still fulfilling our life work. So it was really interesting for me because I recognized how much emotional energy I was giving to my job and how much emotional energy I was giving to my work, and where there was an imbalance. So I was giving a lot of emotional energy, obviously, to putting food on the table. I didn't have any emotional energy left to foster and nurture my work, my sole purpose, which was my writing. So then I recognized where that slight imbalance was, and I started to go, oh, hang on a minute. Okay. I can't give all my energy to this if I still want to be able to do this. So now that I've been practicing and living my adventure, I'm very conscious and cautious as to how much emotional energy I devote to either my work or my job. And it gives me that cost price iceberg model, which I've talked about so much in the past, about how you know, the cost of doing something is just the tip of the iceberg, but the price of doing something is the tip of the iceberg, but the hidden costs of all the things underneath the iceberg. And those are the things that we don't recognize. So it's really about understanding the cost price ice model of all the choices that we make in our life. And a big thing for me as well, like I was an international projects director, that was my comfort zone. But I hadn't expanded and stretched myself outside of my comfort zone for a long period of time. And I really recognize that for a woman in her 30s and 40s and 50s, and often when we become mums, you know, we can't necessarily work professionally in the same capacity we have before. And there's a lifespan to some careers for certain industries, for certain types of people. So I was in a career that I felt the lifespan of such was only going to be available to me for a certain period of time. So I needed to start finding ways to future-proof myself. And that became a driving thing for me. Like, how do I future-proof myself? How do I become self-sufficient? How do I use my passion and my interests and hobbies to sustain me later in life? Because let's face it, I'm going to be 60 when my kids finish school. I'm going to be working into my 70s, but I want to be active and productive in my 80s. So what does that look like for me? So that's when my soul purpose also started to become an adventure for me. And I was quite lucky with the publishing company that I worked with for my book, Ultimate World Publishing, is that you get a lot of tools, resources, and support around publishing a book and then bringing that book to life in many different shapes and forms. So, you know, the traditional publishing route for an author was the old school way of finding an agent or submitting to publishers and getting rejected, and sometimes the golden ticket would arrive. Whereas nowadays, publishing has changed and we can publish work so quickly and rapidly on multiple different platforms. I thought, okay, I need to learn about this. So I went off and I invested money and I invested in myself. And I know that all that I invest in myself will pay for itself 7 times over. You know, and that is, you know, it doesn't necessarily get paid for 7 times over in terms of, you know, monetary income, but it will support you 7 times over. So I invested in creating the book. I invested in learning the skills, the tools, and the resources that I needed to, you know, distribute my book, promote my book, become better at talking about my book, selling my book, finding, you know, paths for my book. And a lot of the things that I've done with my book have been a result of my own actions and drive and taking chances and putting myself out there and finding ways and using all of the professional skills that I've developed. But equally, you know, some of the foundational skills that I've learned has been as a result of knowing that I can publish a piece of content in any way, shape, or form that I want. This book is available internationally on every major platform in ebook, audiobook, and paperback book. I've achieved that. So that really was a catalyst and inspiration for me to think, oh, okay, I've learned the tools, the skills, and the resources to be able to keep creating content in as many shapes or forms as I wish. And that was an amazing adventure, because I now feel that I've started to future-proof myself. I've learned masses of new skills. I've expanded outside of my original comfort zone, and I'm now living in my learning and growth zone where I'm able to fulfill potential. And that's why you'll see in the book, I've included this diagram about our comfort zone and our zones of change. And it's here on this page 107. And on page 107 here at the center is our comfort zone. We then go into our fear zone, and the fear zone is where we're being told, no, stop, you can't do it, go back. No one will buy your work. No one will listen to you. Who do you think you are? You can't do this. You know, and this is where we start to lack confidence. We find excuses for ourselves, and we also worry what other people will think, you know. But if we're brave enough to move through that fear zone, we start to get out into our learning zone. And in our learning zone, we overcome our challenges. We develop new skills and we expand our comfort zone. So this tiny comfort zone starts to get a bit bigger and a bit bigger and a bit bigger the more time we spend out in our learning and growth zone. And this for me became a revelation, because I thought, okay, if I want to be a writer, I can't stay here. I need to start getting out there as much as I can. And then in the growth zone, which is the biggest circle, this is where we find purpose and meaning in our life. This is where we live our dreams, we achieve our goals, and this is where creativity and innovation sits out here in our growth zone. So this diagram became, fundamentally important for me to helping me achieve my adventure. And if your adventure is climbing Mount Everest, it's the same thing. You have to push yourself outside of your comfort zone repeatedly. You have to go into your fear zone, and then you need to move through your learning zone. Okay, well, how can I conquer Everest? What do I need to know? What do I need to do? And then that's when you're going to get into your growth zone, because you're going to achieve impossible things, really. So zones of change is really, really, really important. And that was a catalyst for me for writing this poem, actually, called A New Comfort Zone, which I'd like to read to you. A new comfort zone. At the edge of the comfortable lies a great big void, full of excuses, fears, and a large dose of the paranoid. But I'm standing at the edge with a mind full of wonder. Will I jump right in and forget all the blunder? I've got years of experience to help me plunder. My mind is made up. I'm not afraid to fail. I've charted a new course and I'm setting sail straight out of this space known as my comfort zone, where new experiences, opportunities, and skills I will hone. I'm ready, I'm steady, I'm raring to go into learning and growth zone, not stopping for no. I've waited too long at the edge of that void, but I see now a new life to be enjoyed. It stretches, it challenges, it moves at pace. You can see from a distance the smile on my face. I'm ready to expand that old comfort zone. I'm ready to expand, and I'm not alone. I've hit the eject and I've jumped the void. I'm flying through space like an asteroid. Those challenges can't stand in my way. I'll blast them to pieces every day. I'm ready, I'm set, I've got my cue to find a space that's wonderful and new. It's bigger, it's bolder, it's taking shape. My comfort zone has a new landscape. So that was my poem at the end of step 8. And, step 8 really is about choosing your adventure, understanding your zones of change and what limits you have from spending too much time in your comfort zone. Because when you spend a lot of time in your comfort zone, you're generally doing the same stuff, hanging around the same people, thinking the same things, doing the same things, and that becomes your comfortable. If you really want to start living adventure, it's about challenge yourself to look at who and what is in your comfort zone, where you might be stuck or limiting your potential or not growing. And that's something for you to think about. Remember that the hardest part about changing yourself is generally everything else stays the same. So this is what I realized as well. Like, I could change and evolve and grow and become a writer, but most other stuff around me would still be the same. I'd still need to be mum. I'd still have a toddler. I'd still be doing potty training. I'd still be doing the school runs. I'd still be doing all this, everyday mum stuff, and I'd still be a project manager. So all of that would stay the same. But that's the hardest part about changing, is that I needed to change, but I didn't necessarily need to change all of that. Doubts and fears will come up. That's normal. The best things in life are not necessarily easy. So the lady that runs this publishing company, she has an expression which is how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And that's really about all it is. What's one positive thing I can do each day to help me work towards my goal? And taking that bite of an elephant is it. And then the last one is find the support network for your adventure. And I had to go and find a group of writers and publishers and various other people who supported my work. And that was a huge catalyst for me for producing book number 2, this one. I went out and I found my people. I found people to help me. I found people to support me. I found people to encourage me. I found people to inspire me. And those were the people that were supporting my adventure. In this week's coming, I'm going to be launching book number 3, and then I'm finalizing later this year book number 4. So my adventure is ongoing. It's evolving, it's changing. I'm going to get better. I don't want to go backwards. I can see that my growth and my comfort zone is going to keep expanding as a result of my life adventure. Really this quote that I've put here, nothing adventured, nothing gained. And really that's what life is about. If we don't seek to grow and evolve and we stagnate, how do we keep people wanting more of us? How do we, the last thing I want in the world is to be boring in my children's eyes. Really, I want them to want to spend time with me and to want to learn what I'm learning, or to know things that I know about. And they're going to know things that I don't know. And, to be relevant and to be interesting and to be creative and inspiring for the rest of my life, not just at this time of my life. So that's really what I wanted to share with you around step 8. I think everyone's adventure is different. Everyone has their unique talents and gifts that they can give to the world and to explore, and they may change over time, and I might become the best writer that I can aspire to be, and then I might move on to something else. It doesn't matter really. All that matters is that I'm actually trying and working towards fulfilling my soul purpose and to achieve work that's also important to me. So I hope that that's useful to you, to help encourage you on your journey to your adventure. It really has been fundamental for my well-being. I never ever thought that it would be one of the most crucial things in my well-being, but it so is, because when I write in my journal, I make sense of the world. When I write a poem, I voice my feelings and my thoughts. When I create content in a book, I have a message to share with other people. So writing really has been just the adventure of becoming a writer, which wasn't necessarily the goal when I wrote down step 1 and started following it, but it has since been fundamental to my well-being, because I can unpack and unpick and create and make things that are important to me, and ultimately help me make sense of the world, to feel good about myself, to add value to others, and all the things that help foster well-being on a holistic level. So I hope that that is useful to you. Thank you very much for listening. And if you've got any questions about step 8, or you want to unpack your adventure and you need some help to figure it out, just drop me a message. Okay, thanks for watching. Take care. See you soon. Bye.